Happy holidays, Stephen.
Ting, ting, ting. Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. I don't like Christmas. Just kidding, I like Christmas. It's just a stressful time for people that have to buy presents and also buy houses. It's
very true.
Yeah.
I mean, not specifically in that order or necessarily those
Yeah.
things. Do you ever get end of the year anxiety? Like,
Because of
you feel
it
like
being
you gotta
the
cram
end of the
everything
year?
in? Yeah, like you just feel like you gotta cram everything into the end of the year.
No.
Or is that just me?
No, I
Maybe
mean,
that's
I
just me.
get anxiety because I don't really get anxiety over it, but I get like a little like annoyed by the fact that I have to go spend a bunch of money on people. No, I'm just kidding.
Very true.
I only like spending money on myself. I mean,
I don't. You know what's
let me
crazy?
let me just say it like here.
Yeah.
I'm selfish. I like to.
Oh, yeah.
I've been a bachelor
I much
for a
prefer
long
buying
time,
myself.
and then this year I got married, and now it's hard for me to transition to wanting to spend money on other people. But I do spend money on my wife. It's so the kid.
I don't know
If I have a kid, I don't know what's gonna happen.
I know. I don't know if it's the spending the money part. It's for me the stress about the situation is what to get someone. You know what I mean? Like,
it doesn't stress me out.
I find that to be difficult.
I don't see. The thing is I'm hard to buy for because I buy everything for myself. Everybody else is pretty
Right.
easy for me, at least, because they don't have a lot of expectation. And for the most part, they're a lot more responsible with their money, so they actually need things. Me, I'll just go
Right.
get what I want, and then
Well, it's almost like, how much do you spend on someone? Like, how much is too much and how much is too little to the point where you think that they're gonna be, upset that you bought them something that was cheap. You know what I mean? Does that ever factor in for you, or is that just me overanalyzing and overthinking everything?
Yes,
like I
yes and
normally
no. I it depends. Like with me and my brother, like I try to match him. Like I try to be like, if I get him a PS4 video game that costs $60 to $80, I try to match him. I try to get him something in that price range. Sometimes it doesn't even out. Like this year, because we tell each other what we're going to buy each other so we can get something we want. And he's getting me a new professional headset, Audio Technica
nice.
headphones,
Nice.
and they're like $150. And
Very nice.
so I'm going to buy him. Well, I already bought him a new PS4 controller that's $60. Why they so expensive? I don't know why.
I've never understood why those controllers are still to this day.
Yeah.
They're still $50 to $60 a piece for every console
Yeah.
that comes out. Baffling to me.
And then I mean, he gave me some choices, but I'm going to get him something he needs, which in this case it won't even out price-wise, but he's going to get a post hole digger. he got a new place himself recently back in May, and he wants to replace the fence in his backyard, so he needs to get post hole digger to help.
Oh yeah, I know what those are.
You know what a post hole
they're
digger
like-
is, right? Cool.
Yeah, they're like essentially kind of like two spades attached.
Yeah,
together,
two little shovels
and you
attached
just-
together that you can
You drive them
clamp.
into the ground.
Yeah,
you
it's
pick up the thing. Dang, that's hard work.
It's hard
not
work.
Easy work.
It's hard work. But he just,
You gotta-
just throw it out there. My brother, he just graduated from the academy. He's now a police officer.
So he must be
So-
hopefully physically fit.
Yeah.
of
Well,
course.
funny enough, he won the physical fitness award for
There you
his
go.
his class. So, but he's going to now be an officer of the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department. So,
Nice.
congratulations to him. But
very much congratulations to him. But I guess we'll just jump right into it because I don't think it's going to be a longer episode.
I don't think it's going to be a long episode because this is a pretty easy movie to get through.
Yes, it
and
is.
it's not very deep. But
No,
if you did,
it's a lighter way to end the year.
if you didn't know, this is Cinema Discovery Project.
It is. It is the 70th episode.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes, we missed all of the 69 jokes we could have made last time, but
why didn't I do that?
but I guess everyone out there will make them for us.
Oh well.
This is, episode 70. This will be the last episode of the calendar year of 2020. The year from hell for
Yes.
pretty much everyone,
Basically.
unless you're a big corporation like Amazon and you keep making trillions of dollars off people buying stuff. But other than that, it's been a pretty shitty year for a lot of people.
Yes.
but we're ending it on a lighter note because we went pretty dark throughout October and November in general.
Yeah.
I just feel like we did. I mean, we did do one of the darkest movies you'll ever see, and I Saw the Devil.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get much darker than that. You can, but for our purposes, that was pretty dark.
We're not going to talk about the Siberian film, so.
Yeah, the Serbian.
Or
film.
Serbian,
Either way,
Siberian. Yeah.
which is for some reason it's getting a Blu-ray re-release somewhere. I remember one came out years ago, and then it immediately got like taken off the shelf for obvious reasons. But anywho, yeah, I typically would have chosen a more darker, serious movie, but we decided to go lighter. We're going with Elf, which is the Jon Favreau film from 2003.
Yeah.
If you can believe it came out 17 years ago.
Yeah, I know, right?
It doesn't feel like a movie that came out that long ago.
We probably talked about it somewhat when we did our last holiday episode, when we talked about like the best Christmas movies. We might have
Yes, we did.
We might have talked about it during that episode a little bit, but
yeah, most likely when we just went through the gamut of, holiday films and whatnot. But Steven, what's your first introduction to this movie?
2003. So I was about 14. So I was in middle school. It's probably something I went and loved and saw in theaters. I wouldn't think that it was any other way I saw it. I was going to the movies a lot during that time, so I'm pretty sure I saw it in theaters. And Will Ferrell was a big deal. This was like the him kind of in the rising of his powers, where he was he'd done Anchorman. He was of course on SNL, so he was very popular.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up, but go on.
But yeah, I mean that's basic. I mean he was somebody that I was aware of, and this might have been my introduction to Will Ferrell. Was probably this movie, because of my age. I'm thinking I probably saw this before I saw Anchorman.
I want to say it came out before Anchorman.
Did it come out like a year or two before, maybe?
Yeah, I'm looking at his filmography right now, so I can tell you. Yes, it looks like it came out a year before Anchorman.
Yeah.
Yes, it did. But so you had saw it in theater then?
I'm pretty sure I probably saw this in theaters. My parents probably took me to see this. I just can't remember necessarily, but I'm pretty sure I probably saw this in theaters.
Yeah, it came out on November 7th, 2003, so obviously in time for the holidays that year. For me, I saw it on DVD later on. Must have been 2004 for me. And I'm a little older than Steven, so I was probably 16 or so. I remember because I still have the DVD I bought in 2004 from Suncoast Video at the mall. And Suncoast doesn't exist anymore. I don't even know if it was a national branch or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was pretty.
A store up here.
Yeah, it's been basically replaced by FYE.
Yeah, it was Strawberries, Suncoast, Flip Disc or something like that. And then FYE is kind of still
it's hanging around my area still.
Yeah, it's still hanging around up here as well. So it must be doing
well enough,
okay enough to stay in business.
I think the Pop Toys saved them.
Yeah, they branched out. Significantly from just doing music and movies, and they've just gotten into every other
collectibles
type stuff.
And all kind.
Yeah, they got into all of that stuff. And what is interesting for me, my introduction to Will Ferrell was, of course, through SNL, which I think a lot of people it was. Specifically with just because I think every generation has their specific SNL cast or cast member that is notorious for them. And for me, Will Ferrell was there because he started in SNL, I think, around 95. And then he went up through the 2000s. Then, once their movie careers kind of take over, the big ones tend to leave. That happens in every generation of SNL people. But I was a big Will Ferrell fan, and I'm kind of still a fan to today, maybe to a lesser extent, just because he's not really doing as many, not great films, but doing good films like he used to.
Well, I would say I think that some of these guys, their comedy runs their course a little bit, and they their comedy they don't try to retool their comedy much. Yeah. And they just kind of become stale. And
he kind of keeps doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah, I think that's
2020.
It's not, when you're talking about dramatic actors, a lot of times you'll see them push themselves to try to new things. But when it comes to comedic actors, you don't see them necessarily pushing themselves in new comedic directions a lot of times. Some of them do, but very rarely.
Yeah, very. I mean, some comedic. I mean, Jim Carrey has done more serious stuff.
But I'm saying
really
even
good
just
serious
different
stuff.
spectrums of comedy.
Oh,
You know, like
okay.
like
I was thinking flipping from comedy to
I
drama.
don't think we think
stretching
about
the
comedy
lines.
in that way though. We think about dramatic performances in that way, that there's different levels to that, but there is different levels of comedy too. And there's
Right.
there's the slapsticks, there's the farcical kind of comedies, there's more maybe like romantic comedies, there's different levels to comedy that some of these actors just stay, like Adam Sandler stays on the same plane for the most part when it comes to his comedy. He's not.
Yeah, and what's baffling to me about him is that some of his comedy is much better than other parts of his comedy. I don't know. It just, to me, he's just cruising right now, and
I think
rightfully
it's
so. I think he's earned it.
He's earned it. I mean, people still like his movies. So what is he gonna
Yeah.
do? Stop doing what's making him money? I mean, it's
Of course. I mean, he makes like $20 million a movie
Yeah.
because he both acts and produces his own films, and yeah, he's got all kinds of deals with Netflix now and whatnot. But once in a while, he shows up in something dramatic and just blows the doors off.
yeah.
Uncut Gems. He was amazing in Uncut Gems, winning the Independent Spirit Award, I think Best Actor award for that movie. Almost getting nominated for an Oscar. Pretty damn close. But back to Will Ferrell. Yeah, I think his best work was probably done in the 2000s, because I think you've got movies like we're going to talk about Elf, and he was also in Old School, which is a
It's a little
really
bit more of
funny
an
movie.
ensemble movie.
Yeah,
because you got
but
Vince
he
Vaughn.
sticks
and,
out
yeah,
in it.
yeah. I would say obviously Anchorman.
Yeah,
I would say
Anchorman,
Step Brothers is a lot of people's favorites.
Wedding Crash. I mean, he has that great.
Oh,
scene
he
stealing
steals
in
the
Wedding
movie
Crashers.
in Wedding Crashers. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when he shows up, Mom with the meatloaf.
Ma,
I mean, I
meatloaf!
say that all the time.
You almost got
some other
nunchucked. You don't
film-
even know.
I mean, there's some other stuff there that are floating in there that some people like Semi-Pro or Blades of Glory. I just actually watched Stranger Than Fiction last night for the first time, which came out in 2006.
That would be his attempt at serious.
And it's good. He's actually really good in it. It's both comedy and drama. It's really good, directed by Mark Foster. But that's kind of the closest he's ever really gotten to truly dramatic acting. He was in Woody Allen's film Melinda and Melinda early in the 2000s. But then he's kind of just shows up in other things.
He typically plays characters that are very childish.
Yes.
Or they're very just obnoxious. Like every character he plays is either screaming in your face or just being kind of just like ignorantly, childish. It's just
Right.
the character he's good at it. I mean, he's good at it, but it's
but he's also he's older now.
Yeah.
That worked 20 years ago, but now he's much older, so it doesn't perhaps work the same way it used
well, it's
to
just
anymore.
it's just like Jim Carrey. Like we love
Yeah.
Jim Carrey movies, but it got to a point where his kind of like cartoon revolving door of impressions got old. Like that was his thing, was just how many impressions can I do? How many little quips can I say in a cartoonish way? That people got kind of sick of that.
Yeah, and then there's some hits and some flops now. I mean, Get Hard is okay. His movies, I don't think are ever truly terrible. Although Zoolander 2 is really bad.
It's
That's
terrible,
more
yeah.
just that whole movie's bad.
I would
not just
say
him.
personally. I mean, I know a lot of people won't agree with me, but the Daddy's Home, the first one's not too bad.
Okay. I never saw either of them. So
Yeah, the second one not so much, though it does have Mel Gibson as the dad of Mark Wahlberg in it.
Mark Wahlberg. Yeah, and then John Lithgow's his father.
Yeah, so it has its moments, but
Yeah. I heard Holmes and Watson was bad.
I-
all the clips I saw from it were really bad. were really bad.
yeah.
But yeah, so Will Ferrell's in that movie, and it's not. I don't know if Will Ferrell ever quite had a breakout film. He just had kind of a series of good
You could maybe say this was his breakout movie.
Is it though? I don't know. I guess.
I mean, was
so.
there
I was
something
talking to
before
Steven
Elf that
before.
was as popular as Elf is?
Old school? That was kind of it. I mean, he was in Zoolander as Mugatu, which is great, but that's more of like
They're very supporting roles. You know, they're
supporting role, and that was more of a vehicle for Ben Stiller.
and
as
then the other one
Zoolander.
being Vince Vaughn, and I guess Luke Wilson was kind of the other lead.
Kind of more of a character than that, but before that, he had roles in like The Ladies' Man,
Yeah,
Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, but that was a smaller role, and then kind of a bunch of other stuff, but a bunch of TV stuff. But yes, you could say Elf is one of his most well-known roles. Elf, Step Brothers, these are his more well-known, well-remembered, and continually brought up.
yeah.
These movies are continually brought up all the time. I can't tell you how many Step Brothers gifs I keep seeing being used in conversations, whether it be on YouTube or not YouTube, but Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah.
But he was not the only one in this film. The other part of the cast, James Caan, is in the film, who plays his father. And James Caan is probably most well known for being in The Godfather. He was in
Misery.
Michael Mann's Thief, Misery. This was kind of like the last relevant role for James Caan, I would say. If I was just looking at his IMDb, nothing on there really pops after this. Yeah, some of these movies, some of these titles, not exactly great. But yeah, he's in the film as well. Another someone who became a much bigger star is obviously Zooey Deschanel, who, I've always been a massive fan of hers. This, I could say, was one of her biggest films.
Well, yeah, since she showed up in Almost Famous.
Yeah, that's where I
yeah.
first saw her, was in Almost Famous, at like the ripe age of like 13, 14, when I was watching that movie for the first time. But after that, her career kind of blew up. But she stayed in the indie realm early on in her career. And then I've actually gone back to watch kind of her indie roles, and they were really good films. Like, they were, like, she was in the movie Manic, which is really dark. She was in, what's that David Gordon Green film, All the Real Girls, which is also really dark. So it's kind of like, Elf is stuck in there amongst a bunch of dark films.
Yeah.
But she was really young in this movie. I think she was only like 22, 23.
Yeah, it's kind of one of them scenarios where the
age difference is
the romantic
obvious.
yeah.
It's like
a 25-year difference,
I think it's more like 13 actually.
You
I think
think Will Ferrell wasn't already almost 40 by this movie?
Yeah, Will Ferrell was born in 1967, and this movie came out in 2003. So, what's that? What I couldn't. He was like 36.
Yeah, so like I guess like
she was like
15
years. She was born in 1980. Don't ask me how I know these things.
So that is what, 13 years.
Yeah.
So I guess that's not so bad, but he plays a lot older. He plays a lot older than he looks.
But he looks a lot older. Yeah, he looks older. I can't imagine Will Ferrell in his 30s. I don't know why. Isn't that weird to you? Where like, the older we get, we're approaching the ages of people that we had seen on like television and movies when we were younger, and it's like, do we look that old? Do we actually look that old? I don't know. It's kind of weird. Anywho, Zooey Deschanel, honestly, one of my favorite actresses. I've always been a big fan of hers. Her career has obviously, gone much higher since 2003. She had that sitcom, The New Girl, which was a big hit for a few years for Fox. She kind of fluctuates between movies and TV. She was in David Gordon Green's Your Highness. She was in Our Idiot Brother, which I thought was an underrated movie. 500 Days of Summer is probably what she's known for.
I think that's one of the great romantic.
That's an interesting film.
Romantic comedies.
What's that? Is that Mark Webb?
Yeah, Mark Webb, Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie.
She was in Yes Man with coincidentally Jim Carrey. Yeah. That was a weird age difference in that movie.
Yeah.
But she was in. Did you ever see that sci-fi miniseries that was The Wizard of Oz? It's called Tin Man, and she played the Dorothy character.
I haven't seen it.
It was a weird steampunk. It was like a steampunk version of Wizard of Oz.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I had the DVD I think I still have the DVD actually somewhere. Yeah, it came out in 2006, 2007. But yeah, so just getting into Elf in general, the plot of the movie is kind of simple, kind of quaint.
It's a fish out of water story.
A fish out of water, a giant kid, an adult with the child's type,
Well, we start
wonder.
Yeah, we start off the movie getting an idea of it's told in voiceover by one of the elder elves.
Bob Newhart.
Yeah, Bob Newhart plays.
Talk about comedic legend,
Yeah,
Bob Newhart.
yeah.
With the Bob Newhart show, and then his show Newhart back in the day. Bob Newhart is in this film as well as Ed Asner, and it's a pretty good, old school, vintage, great cast.
And there's a great by one character, a very more relevant actor that shows up later in the middle of the story. He was in Game of Thrones. He shows. He has a scene. We'll wait till we get to him.
Yeah.
But he
I also want to bring up Mary Steenburgen just because she's his stepmother in this movie, but she's his biological mother in Step Brothers. Talking about Will Ferrell. It's kind of an interesting connection there.
Yeah.
But this movie starts out, like Steven said, in a voiceover, and what happens is Santa goes to an orphanage, and one of the babies who's at the orphanage crawls into his sack and ends up at the North Pole.
Yeah. And you get a little bit of a backstory about the culture of the North Pole. That at one point they tried to have different types of magical creatures run the North Pole.
Yes,
you get like first we tried to have troll. We had trolls, but we couldn't get them potty trained. And there's your fart joke right there.
And then they had gnomes, but gnomes would just drink all day.
Yeah, they would just drink and they just fuck around all day. So then elves ended up being the best suit. And then, and then it shows Santa show up at an orphanage, and baby Buddy goes into his sack, and he comes back, and they decided Bob Newhart decides he's gonna basically adopt him and keep him up there.
Yeah, he also says that I guess Santa has a soft spot for babies, so he wouldn't bring him back to the orphanage, which is kind of sweet. Also, I don't know how he didn't notice there was a baby there the whole ride back. But anyhow,
yeah, they're just magical beings.
Just leave it up there. Just leave that one
suspension
of disbelief. Suspension of disbelief.
Whatever.
So they decide to keep and raise the baby. They call him Buddy because on his diaper it's like a Buddy brand type diaper or whatever. So they just give him that name, and he grows up thinking he's an elf. And you see kind of this narrative montage by Bob Newhart, who, like Steven said, adopts him, and
you see that
I think Bob Newhart's character is Papa Elf.
Yeah.
Isn't that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Papa Elf, which kind of reminds me of Papa Smurf, but whatever. Ed Asner plays Santa, who I think, I'll be honest, just make Ed Asner like the real Santa Claus. It works so well in this movie. And you just see him grow up, and he doesn't quite fit in with the rest of the other, for obvious reasons.
Basically, as he gets older, we start to see that there's a size difference, which of course plays into all the awkward physical comedy going as, like the bathroom's too small, and his bed's way too small, so he has to use two beds, and it's still too small, and yeah, I mean, he starts to realize that he doesn't have the same skills as all the other elves have, specifically in making toys and making toys fast.
He can't make toys fast enough, and they're building like Etch-a-Sketches and stuff like that. And he just there was the one scene where he's like, yeah, sorry, I'm so far behind. He's like, and then the elf's like, oh yeah, that's okay. How many have you made? He's like 85, and the whole workshop stops, and it's like 85. It's like, yeah, you're only what is it?
He's like 900. Basically, they make like 1,000 a shift or whatever a person.
Yeah, So he's like 900 Etch-a-Sketches behind and stuff like that. And then he overhears them talking about how he's like, I mean, can the supervising elf talking to another elf can you cover this because Buddy's just not good at this. It's just creating all kind of problems and all this kind of stuff. Of course, Buddy's hiding behind probably the skinniest wall post you'll ever see. So I don't know how they don't notice him, but it all plays into the physical comedy of it all. And then that's how he finds out that he's not an elf.
Yeah, they basically say
it's what do you expect? He's a human and stuff like that. And That's kind of first act stuff where he's just like, he kind of ends up having to leave the North Pole. He has a great relationship, I think, with the Papa Elf character and him. It's a father-son relationship, and I think that was really sweet and really, really nice to see. And I think they handle that, for something that looks so ridiculous, they handle it with really great sincerity and like genuineness that you wouldn't really expect from a movie about, a human living amongst elves.
Well,
it kind of sounds ridiculous.
We talked about this last episode, but this is directed by Jon Favreau. I think this is his first movie, right, that he directed?
I want to say second.
Is it his second?
Because Made is his first,
Okay.
and Made is the movie that no one...
Yeah, because I haven't seen it.
Remembers? Because everyone thinks, like I said last time, everybody thinks he directed Swingers, and he didn't.
Yeah, I didn't know he. I know he didn't direct that, but I didn't know he had a movie between.
Yeah, I think that was Doug Liman that I said last time. So Made is a movie that came out in 1999, and Jon Favreau is in it, and he plays like a boxer in that movie. And he gets involved in like a money laundering scheme and stuff like that. I think Vince Vaughn's in that film as well as Famke Janssen. Tom Morello's in that movie.
Interesting.
Just right now, Faison Love is also in that movie, who also is in Elf. Very interesting. But yeah, so Jon Favreau, this is his second movie, and he started his career as an actor. He has more acting credits than he has any other credits, I think. Jon Favreau is famously in movies like I said, Swingers, but for me, he was actually in Batman Forever. Didn't know that till right now. But he was in he has an uncredited role in Hoffa, the Danny DeVito movie. Didn't know that.
I think he.
But he's also in Rudy. That's what I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
He's also in the movie Rudy with Sean Astin.
I think
that's where I remember him.
But
from.
obviously, he has this pretty great connection to the comedic side of the business. He knows a lot of comedic actors, a lot of comedians, and I think that's gotten him far, and it's also helped. I think his directing, his in the sense of comedy.
The one thing I've always respected about Jon Favreau, and one thing I've come to know about him over just the years since his career's kind of exploded over the last 12 years or so, is he's a super like film fan.
Yeah.
Like he's a big film buff as well, as many filmmakers and actors and actresses and other people working in the industry are. They're all for the most part really big film fans, so they get their inspiration from a lot of just other films and other filmmakers and places and whatnot and stuff like that. But for me, I think Jon Favreau is a really solid director.
I think he's a really solid director.
Good.
I just wish I'd see him do more of what he wants to do, or at least more of original.
Right now, he's fallen into big. Like, he's fallen into the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'd like to see him peel back over to, like, what he did with Chef. Like, show something with a little bit more passion. I mean, I know he's probably really into what he's doing, but I personally would like to see something a little bit more personal from him.
Because if you just look at his IMDb credits, he went from Elf to Zathura, a space adventure. And then he went from there right into Iron Man 2, Cowboys and Aliens. And then he did Chef, which you could say is his small indie film. Yeah. And then he went back to the mainstream with The Jungle Book and then The Lion King. And now he's running like The Mandalorian and with Star Wars and stuff like that. And it's probably only a matter of time before he does something else within Star Wars and whatnot. So his
they just announced like 20 shows.
Oh yeah, so they did just announce like 10.
So he's probably
10
involved
Wars,
in some
MCUs.
of that.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, I'm looking right here. He's a producer on, one of their shows that they announced, The Rangers of the New Republic. Yeah. He's a producer on that. He's a producer on Jungle Book 2, which I don't know if he's actually directing.
I would say he's probably
Jungle
not.
Book 2.
He's probably not.
I don't know. That's an IMDb thing, so it could happen. It could not happen. He's also an executive producer on the Ahsoka series that's going to be coming out as well. How involved is he going to be in all of these things? He only has an executive producing, credit, but who knows? Who really knows with him? I know is that he's very hands-on with The Mandalorian. If you've seen all the behind-the-scenes stuff with that show,
literally writes the screenplays for all these.
Yeah, well, yeah, he has his hands creatively in that show a lot. he and Dave Filoni and all the great directors they get, are all collaborating to create that series. But yeah, he's living the high life right now.
Yes, but
in the mainstream,
but I
world.
think,
But like you said,
I think
it'd be cool to see him come back down. But I don't think he's got the time. I don't think
he's I don't know what he's gonna do now, but yeah, I think he is a solid filmmaker, and I think that's part of the reason why this movie turned. Unfortunately, from what I hear, they don't really get along, him and Will Ferrell.
Didn't know
yeah.
that.
Well, this was said by James Caan in a recent interview where they asked, like, is there ever going to be a sequel? Because apparently Favreau's always talked about there being maybe a sequel to Elf, but Will Ferrell keeps saying no, and James Caan has kind of been on the same wavelength and has said in a recent interview that it doesn't seem like they get along. Probably because Favreau wants to do one and he doesn't want to. And they're creative differences, as they say.
Yeah, what's interesting is that literally, like, one of the trivia things for the movie of Elf is that the first thing that they have on there is that Will Ferrell has no interest in reprising his role for a sequel in the years since, telling Andy Cohen on Watch What Happens Live back in 2013. Absolutely not. I just don't think it would look. I just think it would look slightly pathetic if I tried to squeeze back into the elf tights. Buddy the middle-aged elf. Yeah, he said the same thing apparently in a 2007 interview as well.
Yeah.
So we're probably never going to see an Elf sequel, and I don't really.
I don't think we
need
need one now.
I honestly don't think we need one. It's become, we're kind of going off track here, but it's become kind of like a Christmas cult classic in the same vein that every year people watch, like Christmas Vacation or It's a Wonderful Life or A Christmas Story. It's become part of that rotation now. And you don't really, and none of those movies really got sequels. I mean, granted, Christmas Vacation was part of a franchise, like a loosely connected franchise, but it's kind of like a one-off wonder, if you will. But getting back into let's steer back into the plot.
So yeah, he finds out he's human.
Yeah, he finds out he's human. He's got to come to grips with that, and also there's a great scene between he and Papa Elf where they're working on the engine for the sleigh.
He tries to show him that there's something he can be good at because the elves have their talents and he can have his talents, which is, he can help him do these things that, humans are something that they actually do in the real world, which is work on mechanical things and big engines.
It also brings up the idea that Santa's sleigh used to be run on Christmas spirit.
Yeah.
But since there's such a lack of Christmas spirit in the world now, it needs the sleigh needs an engine basically to get it to lift off and fly places. The reason why I bring that up is because that comes back literally in the third act of the movie. But so Buddy decides that he's gonna leave the North Pole and because Papa Elf tells him about his father and how his mother gave him up for adoption and how his mother passed away, but his father's still alive. And he lives in, of course, the New York City, which is where I guess every movie is set, if you break it all down. and he decides, so he's going to go there. His mode of transportation, Stephen, is a block of ice.
Yeah. Well, before we get to that, first we do find out that apparently his father's on the bad list. The naughty list.
Yes, it's devastating.
And he's devastated. He's like, no! He screams, and then he runs outside, and you get like a snowman that like talks to him for a second, telling him about, how he needs to go out into the world. And one cool thing, I don't know if you saw this, but these little first of all, I like that the outside life is like the old claymation Christmas.
Oh yeah. He talks to the. Looks like the snowman from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah, that and the little creatures. There's like a little, bear cub, and apparently the bear cub is voiced by Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. It was voiced by Ray Harryhausen, the legendary Ray Harryhausen, the late great legendary Ray Harryhausen, who was a pioneer of stop motion animation and special effects and stuff like that. Yeah, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, he says goodbye to all those guys,
Yeah.
and then like he's about to leave, and like
A big
what is
like
it, like a unicorn whale pops up,
walrus
out
of
the
some
water?
some kind of weird
Yeah,
creature.
walrus of some
And
kind.
apparently that's John.
Freaks out the other
That's
ones.
John Favreau.
Yeah.
Apparently, he does that voice. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they all say goodbye to him, and he gets on like I said, a block of ice, and he's just on his way to New York.
Yeah,
and
he says
he
it-
ends up there somehow.
He somehow it only took him a few days. Apparently, that's what he says later. He's like, I walked a couple days to get here. I'm like, you had to walk all the way across Canada, all the way across the Arctic.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, to go from the North Pole, you gotta. But if he's floating down on that block of ice, I don't know what. I don't know. Like at what point does that block of ice start to melt?
Yeah,
Anywho, you have to suspend.
yeah.
disbelief
Once again,
throughout this
it's supposed to
movie.
be for comic effect. So,
Yeah, so he shows up, and I think doesn't he end up in
well,
like, Central Park? Or
well, first
somewhere?
he shows up on land, and then when he first gets
Yeah.
there, he meets a raccoon, and he decides,
Oh, and he tries to hug it.
yeah, and then
Yes.
and then that doesn't.
Tries to hug it because he's like, "Oh, you're angry. You need a hug." And
Yeah.
it's like, you may not want to be hugging wild animals. Of course, the raccoon attacks him.
Yeah.
Bites his neck or whatever, and then he tries to cross a road, and like it's probably the first time he's ever seen a road before. He just has this throughout the whole movie. He has this very
Well,
childlike
yeah,
wonder.
he's a very innocent being. He has no.
Yeah, he has no concept of humanity or the real world.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like a blank slate. And it's kind of, I mean, to go to any place when you're kind of a blank slate like that, New York's probably the worst
Yeah.
place to go to.
I mean-
because it is sensory overload.
And so basically, he runs around the city, kind of experiencing it. And one thing he does that he was told by Santa not to do, which is eat the gum that's underneath the railing.
Yeah, it's not a gift. It's not there. It's not a treat.
He tells
it's
him
not
when you
anything
get
for
there,
you.
he's like, I've been there thousands of times. Don't eat the gum on the railing. It's not free candy. But he does it anyway, of course. And then like the little things, like he goes and like these people are giving out like pamphlets, and he's like taking every thank you. They just
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The people just handing out free stuff outside of like
Yeah.
the restaurants and stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's a coffee shop that says like they have the world's best coffee.
yeah.
Or something like that. The world's number
He
one
walks
coffee.
in and
Of
he's
course,
like,
it's not true.
He walks in, he's like, congratulations,
You did it.
you got the world's best coffee, yeah.
You did it. Yeah, it's really. And then he isn't this when he runs around the revolving door?
Yeah, he goes in
and
the
gets all
revolving
dizzy
door,
and
yeah.
throws up.
Yeah.
As someone who's been through revolving doors, it's not as exciting as that is, because a lot of them now, at least when I was a kid, and even now, is they have sensors where you can't even get close to them, or else they'll just stop moving, so people don't get caught in them and die. That has happened. So I've never been able to like just swing around a revolving door and then like get dizzy.
Well, that's unfortunate.
That is unfortunate. So he does all that, and he's kind of he's just walking around New York and looking, and then I think this is when he goes to visit his father.
Yeah,
right?
he has the snow globe that has the Empire State Building, which is where he told us
Yes.
his father works. And so he
And
finds,
he has a picture. He has a picture as well.
yeah, and he sees the building and then enters and if,
Oh, and he does. And he goes to he doesn't know what an elevator is, so he goes into the elevator, and he doesn't he jumps out of it because he doesn't know what to do, and then he goes back in, and this guy goes there, and then this guy picks a high up number. And then Buddy decides he loves the lights on the floor levels, so he presses all of them.
he's like, it's like a Christmas tree.
He's like a Christmas
And the
tree.
guy's just like,
And then
fuck.
that poor bastard, that poor guy. He's just gonna be sitting there having to stop at every single level in the Empire State Building before he gets off to where he needs to get off.
Yeah.
And then so once he gets to his level, he gets off. He's like, he goes. What does he say? He says like, "Oh hi, I'm like this is where my dad works." And he's like, "Oh sorry, I forgot to give you a hug." And the door's closed.
Yeah. And one thing we didn't know, we did cut into before we get to this scene, we did cut to the father kind of seeing how he is at work and how he is with his family. We did see that, I think, at some point before
there's
this.
there's an intercut scene of James Caan at his desk, and like this other guy's like, there's 2 pages, because apparently his father works for a book publishing company, I think specifically children's books, and basically they were they're putting out this book about what, like a dog and a pigeon,
I don't know. Yeah.
puppy and a pigeon or something like that. And apparently there's 2 pages missing, and the guys, one of the workers guys, like, there's 2 pages missing. There's no, the people are gonna notice. You can't go to print for this. And the guy's like, kids, and James Caan's like, kids just like want to see pictures and stuff. They don't care about story and whatnot. He's like, so I'm not gonna hold up production for this nonsense. Just go print it.
Yeah.
Basically, his father's an asshole. That's kind of
asshole. And he's lazy.
Lazy asshole jerk guy, and he decides to print the book with 2 missing pages in it, which ends up coming back later on to bite him in the ass. But so Buddy walks into the office and starts saying that he's there to visit his dad. The secretary, who's portrayed by Amy Sedaris, who coincidentally is also in The Mandalorian, probably the least liked character of all of The Mandalorian. She's in there. She thinks it's a Christmas gram that somebody sent him, and not, like, obviously not taking it serious because he's dressed as an elf the whole time, with the shoes, with the tights, and with everything. So he goes in there and he's like, and he tries to, like, tell him that he's his son, but then, like, the whole office is there, like, waiting for him to, like, sing. So he starts singing a song.
He starts singing the things he's trying to say to his dad. He's like,
like,
"Hi, Dad.
I love you.
Hi, Dad. I'm your son, and I love you. I love you. I love you." Like, just all that stuff. And then his reaction is just like, "Well, that was weird."
It's like, usually they just sing, they just put my name in Jingle Bells or something like that. So he goes to sit down, and then Buddy's still trying to tell him that he's his son, and then something about his mom and all this kind of stuff. And anywho, he ends up getting escorted out by security. Yeah. Gets kicked out of the building.
And then they tell him he should go over to the toy store, which is across the street.
Yes.
And that's when he
that's when he ends up at the store Gimbals. It's
yeah.
called. It looks like it's in a mall, or maybe not in a mall. I don't know. It's kind of, because doesn't he go over to the mall and he's looking at ladies' lingerie because the sign
he goes
says,
to Gimbals, and I guess it is in like a mall area. So
yeah, and but he's standing outside the lot, like, I don't know if it's a Victoria's Secret, some type of.
It's like a Belk's or like a department store.
Right, and he's holding up the lingerie that says, for somebody special,
which comes back
like
later.
A gift for somebody special. And he, of course, in his mind, he thinks like it's for everyone, but it's women's lingerie.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be for men, whatever. It doesn't matter. But it's basically, lo and behold, he ends up buying it for his dad eventually because he thinks it's an appropriate gift to give him. But he decides but Faison Love sees him, like in the mall, and he's like getting him to come.
He assumes he's an employee of his store. Yeah.
Yeah, he thinks he's an elf employee.
Which, how do you not know who works for your store? But
yeah, he's like the store manager too.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like he knows who works there actually.
So
he's like, get over here. He's like, do this kind of stuff on your break, I
love any time in this movie he fights with people about how things really are at the North Pole, or really are in Christmas. So he's like, he's like, people would say we should say,
"Oh, this is great. What is this?"
Yeah, he's like, he talks about
Faison Love says it's the North Pole.
Yeah,
right. And it's like, he's like, no, it's not.
No, it's not the North Pole.
He's like, yes, it is. No, it's not. We have this back and forth, and then Faison Love goes, tomorrow 9 a.m. Santa's coming. Keep your receipts. he just freaks out.
Santa!
One of the most well-known things ever. I've seen this gif a million times.
I know him.
I know him. Santa's coming. He's gonna be here.
Yeah.
I know him. And this is also where we meet Zooey Deschanel's character for the first time, because she works at the store as well, and her name is Jovi, of all names.
As Bon Jovi.
Yeah, I guess. I didn't think of that. But it's spelled differently. Her name has an E at the end. I don't know.
Whatever.
And she's the complete opposite of Buddy. She's just not happy. She doesn't have a lot of Christmas spirit.
Yeah, she's very, if she could almost be, you would say, maybe even if she wasn't wearing Christmas outfit, she'd be goth, almost.
Okay. Yeah, you would think she would be working at a much more less happy store than a kid's store.
Well, I guess because it's Christmas time, it's even happier. But,
I mean, talk about blast from the past. There aren't very many like strictly toy stores anymore. You know, kind of shows you how the world's a lot different than 2003.
Yeah.
But so she is, you know, like I said, not
Kind
not
of
into the Christmas
overwhelmed
thing.
by him.
Yeah, he's the complete opposite, and he is instantly has a thing for her, instantly smitten, if you will.
You could tell. I mean, you can tell he's enamored by her. She's also, of course, wearing an elf outfit as well when they first meet.
As well as all the employees are.
Yeah.
And he, so they have a back and forth, and he's like, Santa's coming tomorrow, isn't that great? And she's just not having it.
Yeah.
But this is where
The store starts to close down.
and he hides out in there somehow. And basically he spends all night redecorating the whole store to make it look, you know, more Christmassy,
using his
more
elf
fabulous.
skills.
Using his elf skills, which he's got some great elf skills. Like he's building like he's doing
building Lego
Lego houses, and he's using he's ripping up the pillows to make the stuffing, taking the stuffing out to make fake snow. He's cutting snowflakes and stuff like that, and hanging them up and draping them up. He's making the store look fantastic, right?
Yeah.
So he stays there all night, and so the next morning, you know, the workers show up and the people show up.
Well, I mean,
and they're all
first he hears somebody, and it's Zoe Deschanel taking.
Oh,
she's
yeah,
in the
completely
locker
forgot
room.
that.
They have like a locker room for the
Yeah.
workers.
I wanted to ask you this actually specifically. She's, I guess there's an employee entrance.
Probably an employee entrance, maybe, you know, in the back somewhere.
So that's how she got in, and she's taking a shower. And I want to ask you specifically: do many stores have employee showers for? Specifically, I'm talking about like department stores at the mall.
I mean, I couldn't tell.
It just seemed odd to me.
I couldn't tell you for sure, but I wouldn't say it's out of the realm of possibility. You know, this is also New York City, so maybe there's a different. You know, they have a different way of how they set
Structure
up
of the stores.
you know, like out here, maybe not so much, but when you're living in the city, and it's so hard to get anywhere, maybe they have like an employee locker room of sorts.
Well, the locker room I have no problem with, because I see that all the time with you know, supermarkets have it for their employees, you know, electronic stores. You know, all stores have places for employees to put their stuff.
Sure.
Got it. I just thought the shower was an odd thing.
It might be one of them things they kind of like, you know, or like, well, this is what we wanted to do for the story. Though
suspension of disbelief again.
Yeah.
Anywho, it leads us because she's singing in the shower, and she's singing. What is she singing? See, "Baby, It's Cold Outside."
Yeah.
Right. She's singing "Baby, It's Cold Outside," and he hears it, and he starts singing along with her, and he's like sitting on the sink while she's in the shower, and he's like, they're kind of like
it's like a duet.
acapella.
It's like a duet.
like an acapella duet type thing, and of course they get to the big crescendo of the song, and he belts out, and she's like, "Wait a minute!"
She realizes
I'm
somebody
definitely
else
not
is
alone
there.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it freaks her out, and he runs out, and he runs into the wall screaming.
yeah, because he covers his eyes and runs into the lockers.
Yeah, because she's like, "Don't look at me," and he's like, "Ah!"
And he runs into the lockers, and then of course that leads. Then the store opens and stuff like that, like I was saying, and the people are all amazed. Face on Love walks in. He's like, and he's completely shocked. There's like there's a bunch of edits of him just looking at stuff with his mouth agape, going, What is all this?
And he assumes that somebody from corporate sent
I
in
thought that was a
somebody.
great joke.
Yeah, it said somebody from corporate was sent in to make the place look better because he didn't do good enough of a job.
Yeah, so they think they think there's a mole for corporate.
Yeah.
And he's like, and he says like, you know, if you see anything, if you hear anything, you contact me on my radio, channel 3.
Yeah.
I just thought that was funny because
And he's like
we're in this together. If I go down, we all go down.
He's like,
and I'm like,
the
probably
code
not.
word, the code phrase is, "Mama's got a brand new bag. Papa's got a brand new bag." I was
I
like,
thought that was hilarious. I hope that was improv. I just hope that was improv.
But but basically you know, Will Ferrell's talking to Zoe Deschanel, saying, you know, you got a great voice, and that you shouldn't hide it, and that, you know,
yeah, you should sing more often. She's like, I don't sing for people because she's too she's too shy about
Yeah.
it and stuff like that. The irony is that Zoe Deschanel is actually a musical recording artist.
Yeah.
So she's actually done like albums and stuff. So she's actually a real singer.
Yeah, and he explains that there's no other better way to bring out Christmas spirit than to sing in front of people, you know. And so he shows his example of it to everybody. He's just like saying, I'm singing, here's me singing. You know, that's what he does. He just explains what he's doing when he sings. And then, of course, the store manager's just like, there's no singing in the North Pole. And he's like, yeah, there is. There's always singing. There's tons of singing, especially when we're making toys.
Yeah. And then we transition over to where the store Santa shows up.
Yeah.
And as we all have seen from Bad Santa, store Santas don't tend to be the nicest people, or whatever. But this store Santa is played by Artie Lang, the comedian, and of course Buddy knows it's not the real Santa, and he goes up to him and he's just like, "You're not the real Santa." And the guy goes, "Of course I am." And then he's like, "What's he smell? You smell like beef and cheese and something like that." And anywho, it leads to a physical confrontation between the store Santa because he pulls off the
beard,
the fake beard, and it freaks all the kids out and stuff. And it's just traumatizing.
To be fair, I would blame Buddy on this one because even if he was a little bit of a weird guy, he was trying to do his job, and and Buddy just made it worse. So. So then Buddy gets fired, though he didn't work there at all anyway.
He also gets arrested.
Yeah, he does get arrested. And the only person, of course, he knows to call is his father. And at the same time, I think we had a scene before we got him out of jail, was a scene with his family where he comes home. Yes. And
he's married to Mary Steenburgen, and they have a young son. I guess he's like, I don't know.
It looks like he's like 15 or 16.
Yeah, around there. And he goes and looks in like an old photo album. And he sees the same picture that Buddy has of him and Buddy's mom. So he's starting to like piece these things together of like, perhaps I do have a long lost son. So he goes and gets him out of prison. And then he takes him. Isn't this when he takes him to the doctor?
Yeah, this is where we meet Jon Favreau in his appearance in the movie.
Yeah, Jon Favreau has a cameo.
Yeah.
Director's cameo. And it's a pediatrician's office of all places. And I have no idea how he knows the Jon Favreau character. He just knows him. And they take like blood from Buddy, and they can't get him to stand still. He keeps eating the cotton balls out of the thing. I'm assuming that those were just like cotton candy balls that they made into like cotton balls, and he keeps eating them. And then Jon Favreau, they're trying to get him to take the blood, and then he won't do it. He keeps grabbing stuff. Basically, he's a giant kid, essentially. And so they basically run a DNA test, which was very quick, by the way. A very quick DNA test that was done in a couple of minutes. There's a great like little scene between Buddy and this other little girl patient who's there, and he's like, you know, what do you want for Christmas? And she says she wants, I forgot what she wanted, and he's like, oh, I'll put in a good word for you, with Santa Claus. She's like, thank you. And then she's like, oh, I like your elf costume. He's like, oh, it's not my costume, I'm an actual elf. So that's really cool. So basically the DNA tests come back, and in a very Maury fashion, in the Maury Povich show, James Caan, you are the father.
Yeah.
You are Buddy's father. And he's like, and it's like, what do I do with him? You know, he thinks he thinks he's crazy because he thinks he's an elf. And Jon Favreau says, you know, take him home to meet your wife, meet your son, you know, treat him as part of the family, and, you know, he'll probably eventually snap out of it once he's getting over this kind of regressive intellectual phase where he, you know, probably didn't have a father, so he's overcompensating, and all this kind of like, you know, psychological stuff. And and so that's what he does. But he decides to warn his wife that he thinks he's an elf, and she's like, he can't think he's an elf.
I have to say it. She's the most understanding wife I've seen that's found out that my husband had a kid with somebody else years earlier, and did
like 30-something years ago.
Which you know, understandably, I would be. You know, it's not like he knew. So, but still, it's like she was like super okay with it. She's like, wow, this is amazing.
She's she's very, very loving and understanding, and
you wonder how she's with James Caan.
Who's an asshole. Like I said, he's kind of a jerk.
Or at least he's like emotionally like distant. Like he's a very like quiet, like he leaves. He obviously leaves the dinner table a lot because it happened. Because they make the son tries to leave too when they're having dinner, and he's his mom makes him stay, and he probably just is the typical works all the time dad that never spends time with his family.
Absentee father, stuff like that. I mean, they look to be well off, financially comfortable. So obviously he's successful at his work, but probably takes up most of his time. But basically, she's the only one who is kind of pushing both, James Caan character and the son character to, be patient with Buddy and until he like recovers or snaps out of it. And it's so basically
we have a dinner scene.
There's a dinner scene, and we learn that Buddy loves that sweet sugar.
Yeah, on everything. Steven. He's like the food groups. The elves stick to 3 food groups: candy, candy canes, candy corn, and syrup. That's the food groups for them. So they
must have terrible blood sugar levels.
Yeah,
terrible.
They must have just over time evolved to just have sugar in their blood. Like a lot of it, and just live off of it.
Yeah, diabetes may be a problem in the elf community.
That or they're magical and it doesn't matter.
Oh, that's true too. They are magical beings, so perhaps their blood is not like our blood, or their.
But the thing is
Buddy's is not like our
Buddy's
anatomy.
human, so it's going to affect him.
But Buddy is human though, so that's a problem. Anywho, they're having spaghetti.
Yeah.
And he asks for
syrup.
And and then Mary Steenburgen is like, that's spaghetti, and he's like, oh wait a minute, never mind. I may have some here. He does. Apparently he carries a little bottle of syrup in his sleeve. He takes that out and he starts eating it. He pours it on the spaghetti, starts eating it, and everyone thinks he's kind of not all there.
He drinks a whole bottle of 2 liter of Coke, and then there's another kind of like a rememberable scene where he burps for at least a good 20 seconds.
Yeah, and that's when like they're in the other room and the son's sitting there and he burps for like 20 seconds.
He's like, "Did you hear that? That was unbelievable."
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
And it's so, and then there's a scene later on where Buddy can't get to sleep unless James.
This would eventually be
tucks him in.
Yeah, this would eventually be Step Brothers. Like it feels like Step Brothers.
But he starts calling. He's like, Dad. He's calling him in the other room, and it comes. He's like, what is it? And it's like, yeah, I need you to tuck me in. And then I tucks him in, and then the next morning,
well, he tucks him in, and he tries to tickle fight him.
Yeah, he does. I never thought I'd see James Caan in a tickle fight before, but
he is doing his best to be restrained this whole time.
Restrained.
Like you can tell, he just wants to like go off on this motherfucker.
Yeah, like throw him out a window, basically. And so they go together. So the next morning, like Buddy's having, doesn't he make them like?
He makes them breakfast and
but also like the spaghetti and syrup, like breakfast or something like that. And he also like gives them like Mary Steenburgen has some, and she's just going along with it, and then he gives her like a whole bag of spaghetti to take to work for lunch, and it's like, okay, whatever. And then he has this whole list of things he wants to do with James Caan. He wants to
make gingerbread houses, or
make gingerbread houses and go for
and then it ends with like
cuddle,
hold hands.
Well, all kind of like kid dad stuff that he wants to do, and then James Caan's like,
I gotta go to work.
I've got to go to work. Yeah. And he's like, oh, okay.
So he tries to leave, and then he gets a call, and it's Buddy calling him, and he's like, how did you call me? He's like
5 minutes after he leaves.
He's like, well, yeah, your wife left me emergency numbers.
Yeah, he's like, oh, it worked. He's like, how did you get this number? And then he's like, okay, I'll call you in 5 minutes. Like, don't call me in 5 minutes.
I'll call you.
I'll call you.
Okay, you'll call me in 5 minutes? All right. No. Yeah. I'll call you. Okay, bye.
So Buddy all day. Also, we forgot to say that Buddy made a rocking horse out of like the television stand.
Yeah.
And
Where did you get the wood to make that?
Yeah, where'd you get the wood to make that? And it's just an intercut shot of just the TV on the floor. So, and I believe like he's there, and he starts also doing the same stuff he was doing at Gimbals, where he's just decorating the whole apartment.
Yeah.
Right.
And then he's like eating like he like takes like
yeah, that breakfast. Oh my goodness, he puts like
marshmallows, pop tarts.
Yeah, like gumdrops and like break crumbles up like I'm assuming like chocolate bars or whatever. And I don't know how Will Ferrell got. Hopefully that was one take, because man, I couldn't do that more than one take. But yeah, so that's what he eats for breakfast, just a sugar feast. And then, like I said, like he's decorating the whole apartment. And then I think this is when, isn't this when we cut to when the kid's getting out of school?
Yeah, the kid's getting out of school, and he's
sitting there across the street, right?
Well, doesn't he start? Does the kid start throwing?
Well, yeah, it gets to that point, but he's sitting outside the school, and the school gets out, and Michael walks out. He's yelling at him across the street, like Michael, over there, right? And he's like, "It's me, buddy. It's your brother." And then like the kid's like, "Do you know that person?" And he's like, "No, I don't." And then so he's chasing him basically down the streets of New York City, and he finally meets up with him in Central Park, and they get ambushed by like other kids throwing snowballs at him, and they have this big massive snowball fight where apparently Buddy is very well equipped at making the most perfect snowballs I've ever seen. I've never seen snowballs so round and so perfect in my life.
And of course he throws them at like gun speed.
Yeah, it reminded me of Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
With that kid in Rookie of the Year when his arm just goes back and he swings it forward, but he's doing a rapid fire, and he's just like catapulting these snowballs at these kids and just nailing them. So that's a really cool, like, endearing moment between, brothers, I guess.
Yeah, this is where they become friends. And so then they go off and they run around the department store.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's where he goes back to Gimbals and he reunites with Jovi's character, and the little brother's like, "Oh, do you like that girl? Like, do you like her?" He's like, he's giving him like advice about how to like talk to her and how to ask her out on a date, essentially.
Yeah.
Which he does. And they're gonna go out to dinner not that time, but Thursday, because she doesn't have time till then, and basically that gets them all happy. And then I think we go back to where they're at the apartment at night, and they're putting up that gigantic Christmas tree that he got.
Yeah.
It looks like straight out of Christmas Vacation, which is way too big for the apartment. Don't ask me how they got it all the way up there, but and they're like putting lights up and stuff, and then James Caan's character goes into the other room to talk to Mary Steenburgen's character again about like, we can't look what he did to the whole place. He put up all these decorations and all this kind of stuff. What are we gonna do with them? He's like, okay, you know what, you take tomorrow off from work and you can watch him. And she's like, I'm not gonna do that, I have a budget meeting. And she's like, you take him to work, you take him to your work tomorrow, and then you can watch him there. And then meanwhile there's an intercut between Buddy trying to like put the star on top of the tree, and he goes and he jumps and he latches onto the tree, and then it falls back down on him. It's great. So basically, the next day he walks. They both walk into work together, and they're both wearing the same exact outfit. And it's kind of, I guess, similar to the North Pole, where all the elves are wearing the same exact outfits, basically.
Yeah.
And then he's walking with him. His dad says, good morning to this person. He'll say good morning, and then his dad will talk to somebody. He'll talk to somebody. It's kind of a kid, like, take your child to work day. It's really kind of endearing.
And in this case, his dad's like the Santa Claus.
Yeah, kind of, or even like the Papa Elf of the group or whatnot. And it's kind of very interesting because I know when I was a kid, when I was really, really young, I always wanted to emulate my own father.
Yeah.
I think that seems to happen with a lot of sons and their fathers and whatnot. I mean, I think that just seems to be natural. So you get to see Buddy kind of reliving a childhood in a microcosm form throughout this movie, throughout the middle part of this movie. And it's very interesting how straight Will Ferrell's character, Will Ferrell, can play it.
Yeah.
And how, I guess it's been so endearing and so believably, wonderful for people that it's, obviously become this, this film people keep going back to 17 years later. And so basically Buddy sits in the corner of his dad's office and he's just
being annoying,
doing whatever, being annoying to pass the time, reading a book, and because he meets like one guy called Francisco, and he thinks that's a cool name, so he keeps saying Francisco over and over again.
Francisco.
Francisco. Ooh, that's a cool name.
So basically, then he sends him to the basement.
And he's like, buddy, you ever seen a mail room before?
Yeah, and
it's this great shiny place where people put like mail in people's bins and it has to go throughout the whole building. And he sends him down there, and the place might as well be the gulag.
Well, I was gonna say though, to me, I think that that whole scenario is kind of reminiscent of how they send him to the quality control area at the North Pole. Where they took him off the line and they made him check all the Jack in the Boxes. So basically,
oh my goodness, we forgot about that scene where he has to check all the Jack in the Boxes, and he just has to.
He knows it's about to jump out, and it scares him every time.
It scares him every single time.
And then the last one delays a little bit, and then he thinks it's got a defect.
It's defective.
And then it pops out again, and it's fuck. But so I think that parallels that somewhat to where it's like he gets thrown into what is considered to be the job that nobody wants. And
it's very interesting how, because of his unique situation of, how, who he is, he doesn't fit in the elf world and he doesn't fit in the human world.
Yeah.
So where does he ultimately fit in? Nowhere. And I think that's a very subtle theme that the film really capitalizes on in this situation.
But I think that what it does is it says that not being into compartmentalized in a group makes you special. Which is, though...
Makes you unique.
Makes you unique. Even though the elves made fun of it, certain ones made fun of him early on, they did before that make a point that, just because he doesn't have the same skills as they do doesn't mean that he hasn't got skills. It means that he's special.
Right.
And that's true in its own way. They might not have meant it the same way, but it is true that I think, people shouldn't be striving to be the same as everybody else.
Right, which is a really, really great message, I think, for everyone. Be your own unique self. Doesn't matter what other people think.
Yeah.
Everyone's unique in their own, special way. But while he's down in the mailroom, he's putting these letters into these tubes and putting them up these chutes and whatever, and he's kind of playing around. The guy, so he tries to befriend. Well, he does befriend. He befriends the man next to him, who is, I guess, he's out on a work release program from a prison, and he's like, oh, okay. And then, so the guy's like kind of sipping on some alcoholic beverage, and I don't know what it is, whiskey or something, who knows. So he thinks it's syrup because the guy pulls it out of like his pocket or something. So he puts it in his cup. Anywho, they end up getting drunk and kind of like just talking about nonsense while sitting on a pallet of envelopes and stuff. And then he starts like this big like dance thing where this big like everybody like he's dancing on top of a table and everybody's cheering him on, and it's all anarchy. Anarchy and craziness ensues.
And at the same time, I think James Caan's boss,
he's having a meeting.
His boss comes in and
the boss comes in, not happy about that misprint stuff before. He's like, my grandkids were reading this the other day, and look, they got to the end, and they're just blank pages there. What happened to the puppy and the pigeon?
He's like, but either way, his book sucks.
By the way, this book sucks. So I want you to be. So I'm going to come back in town on December 24th, and you better have an idea for another book for the first quarter, because this book is not doing well either. So he brings in his top two, or his writers. He brings in his writers, and one is portrayed by Andy Richter.
Yeah.
And I think the other was portrayed by Kyle Gass, maybe from what's the band that Jack Black has?
Oh, you talking about Tenacious D? Yeah,
Tenacious D. I'm pretty sure.
yeah, that's him.
Tenacious
That's him.
D.
That's him.
Yes, and they're supposed to be the top two writers. And Michael Lerner was actually the guy who was his boss. So he brings in his top two writers, and his top two writers' grand idea is to bring in another writer,
Which is like a famous guy.
Miles Finch.
Yeah.
He's got more bestsellers than Stephen King, they say.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna bring him in, and
So that comes
he's gonna be our guy.
that comes back later, or it comes back a little.
It comes back later.
Well, he
So they're gonna bring him in.
Yeah.
But he gets a phone. But so they get him on the phone to like lure him in, and he's got like this demand where he needs like a BMW to pick him up at the airport tomorrow morning, and the internal temperature of the car has to be exactly 71 degrees. Exactly 71 degrees. It's kind of making fun of the whole celebrities and whoever, like, where they have like specific sets of demands for certain things, like an actor or actress will have a certain demand, like while making a movie, where I don't know, certain food demands or comfort demands or whatever. But anywho, they're making fun of that, and he decides that. So in the middle of it, the receptionist calls into him while he's on the phone, Amy Sedaris, and says, the mailroom is calling for you. There's a problem with Buddy, and he's like, stop! Like, I'm on the phone. Stop it! And she's like, there's a big problem on there. You got to go down there. And Peter, and I almost gave it away. Miles Finch is like, who's that? What's happening? I'm not. I'm gonna hang up. But then he relents and he says 71 degrees, and he click, and the phone's off. So then he talks to the person in the mailroom, and it's like, what's happening down there? And it's just all chaos is breaking loose down there. All jovial chaos, I should say, is breaking loose down there. And then it doesn't really cut to any consequences other than he just like leaves with Buddy. Leaves the work with Buddy. Leaves work with Buddy. But so he's going to. I think this is when he goes on his date with Jovi, isn't it? Yeah, and they have a really lovely date, where he basically takes her to all the places that he discovered when he first got to New York. Like, he takes her to that diner with that has the world's best coffee, and she's like, "This is a shitty cup of coffee." And he's like,
"No, it's the world's best.
This is a shitty cup of coffee." Yeah. He's like, "No, it's the world's best coffee." and then he takes her to the spinning door and stuff, and they have a really, really nice time.
And he takes her to a Christmas tree that's really nice, and then she takes him
Times
to the
Square,
big one. That he hadn't seen. He's like, "Wow, that's a big tree."
Yeah, that's like probably like the Rockefeller Center tree. I'm guessing.
So and then it ends with a kiss.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kiss each other.
Yeah, and then they fall for one another. It's very simple. Like, there's not a lot of, how do I say this? The film is very thin in regards to creating really strong character relationships. Like, you'll get one or two scenes of character relationship stuff, and then once it's established, the movie moves on to something else.
Yeah, I would say
it's a short movie. The movie's only like 95 minutes long.
Yeah, if you wanted to say anything, maybe, for Zooey Deschanel's character,
I want more of her.
Huh?
In the movie.
Well, of course.
I would like to have more of her in the movie.
Well, of course, but I was going to say, if you wanted to draw any conclusion of why that she would be attracted to him, is because he's kind of the opposite of her. She's kind of a more deadpan character, and he brings out the fun that she maybe has in her, and the fact that he, of course, gives her courage too to do something that she enjoys later. Is always
the whole idea of maybe perhaps opposites attract thing that mindset that people have, or ideology, whatever that people have, or perhaps she just loves that his continued positivity in the world.
Well, because you could say she maybe takes herself too seriously, and he is completely innocent and childlike and
positive. Like, he's a kind of a beacon of positivity and happiness, which
makes other people happy.
It's even more scarce now than it was back in 2003.
Yeah.
I mean, with everything the way this crap year is gone, and it's so they have a really nice connection there. But I would like to have seen more with their relationship, because we hadn't seen much of it since he had gone with his brother back to that store, and that was it. They only really have, I want to say, what, 3 or 4, maybe 5 scenes in the movie together entirely, I want to say.
Something like that.
And it's a really short film. But anywho, so they have a nice date, and then so now we cut back to the publishing office, and the big guy, the big author, best-selling author that they wanted, has finally showed up, Miles Finch, and he's portrayed by none other than Peter Dinklage, who, of course, is now much more well-known than he was in 2003, I can tell you that, because of his turn in Game of Thrones and other films and whatnot. But yeah, so he shows up, and I kind of recognized his voice on the phone, but I couldn't quite pin it down.
Yeah.
And so he shows up, and he's all business. You know, he's all like, he's got a small notebook full of great ideas that he's gonna lay out. He wants to know what their ideas are, but he's a very, you know, commanding, serious guy. Like he's all down to business. So they start talking kind of like this board meeting type setting, and Peter Dinklage is about to give them like what his idea is, because they throw out some ideas and they're all terrible, like farm ideas about like talking fruit and some nonsense. And it's like and he's like yeah, like farm based stories are kind of out now. They don't do like quite like they used to do. So I've got an idea about like, I forgot what his idea was. It was ridiculous anyway. But he's about to lay it down, and then Buddy bursts in the door and says that he's
in love.
He's in love. He's in love. And he's all happy. He's just got, I'm assuming this was after the date, but the date looked like it was at night.
I guess it's the next morning, and he's been out all night on a high, you know.
Yeah, he's walking on sunshine. Walking on sunshine.
You gonna sing again?
About to sing,
yeah, you're about to
I was about to sing it.
But he comes in, and of course, this is where his unknowing, not knowing the real world. But he looks at, of course, Peter Dinklage is a dwarf.
He's a little person.
Yeah, and he says, well, I didn't know you had elves gonna be here.
He says stuff. Yeah, Buddy proceeds to say stuff that's insulting to someone like Peter Dinklage, but he doesn't realize that it's insulting.
Yeah,
like he's like, he calls him he keeps calling him an elf, and he keeps telling him like, talking about him like working in Santa's workshop.
Does Santa know you've left the workshop?
Yeah, they all, and to be honest, people use those insults to insult people who are short, and and he doesn't know. Peter Dinklage's character is getting furiously pissed, and he's like coming back at him, and Buddy just not picking up on this at all. He's not getting the anger in the room at all, and and Dinklage is like, say elf one more time, and he says it, and he comes, charges over the table and runs at him, and
drop kicks him,
beating the heck out of him,
flips him onto the table, throws him into the wall, and then so then he just finally leaves.
He just storms out
because he calls him elf again.
yeah, he's got him in a chokehold.
He's like, call me elf again.
Yeah,
you're an angry elf.
Yeah, and that's it. And he leaves, but he leaves his notebook there.
So they proceed to
actually played. Yeah,
they proceed to take his ideas. One of his ideas.
Yeah, which I thought would have played a bigger role in the plot than it did. Other than in one scene later on, they bring it up, and then it's never heard of again. It's kind of irrelevant.
Well, it becomes irrelevant because what he decides to make later.
Yes, it does. Yeah. But I thought it would, like, something like that in another movie would be like a third act plot device, and it just turns out to be nothing. Yeah, just they don't do anything with it.
It just ended up being a comic beat,
pretty much. So of course, James Caan's character Walter is furious because he's under a lot of pressure to get a book out early the following year to make up for his mess up before, or else he's gonna get fired, and he's really stressed out for that. So he tells Buddy to go take a hike, screw off. I don't want to I don't want to see you. Don't want to associate with you. Basically, kicks him
out of his life.
Kicks him out of his life, and Buddy decides that he's going to run away. I guess. Yeah. he's gonna run away with he leaves a note on an Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah.
And leaves it on the dining room table or whatever. Also, Steven, I want to say, in all of my years of life, I've never figured out how to use an Etch-a-Sketch effectively. Could never draw anything, could never write my name, could never do anything with it.
Yeah, I mean, I used to like messing around with one, but I don't know that I ever got as good as he got. I don't know there's many people that have ever gotten that good.
I could barely like make a straight line on those things.
Yeah.
Because I just could never figure out. There's only two knobs on them, and like up and down, or left and right, and whatever. And so I never understood how people could like draw pictures on them or something like that. Takes a lot more patience and artistry than I have, and skill. But so he leaves the note and he runs away, and everything kind of moves quickly here in terms of like, you know, there's always that lull moment in the movie where, you know, the main character's feeling down and then the people around him are like feeling sad that he's gone. This happens very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. And the son is freaked out because, you know, Buddy's run away, so he goes to see his dad who's in the meeting with those head writers.
It's Christmas Eve. So
it's Christmas Eve. And
he's supposed to pitch the new idea, and he doesn't have really. I mean, he has an idea that he's stealing from this guy. So then the son walks into the meeting and says, you know, we got to find Buddy. He's running away. And then the boss is like basically telling him, you know, kid, you need to leave. And this is where, he has to make a choice. James Caan's got to make a choice, and he decides that, he chooses family, which is what he should have done from the beginning. You know?
But if there's any negative, like I said, negative stuff about that is some of the plot lines and stuff is kind of underwritten and whatnot, and he makes his turn from being extremely mad and hateful towards Buddy to like, I'm gonna quit my job to go look for Buddy in a matter of minutes in terms of the movie's runtime. And so basically there was a scene beforehand with the two writers who had found the notebook, and they were like, and he's like, just, you know, go, you know, I got 45 minutes, go make a basically start a pitch for it. Go make a storyboard. That's what it was, a storyboard. And then the after scene is when the boss shows up and the son shows up, and they go out to look for Buddy. And
Buddy's like hanging around the park,
walking around the woods. Yeah, Central Park. And
he sees Santa, and
Santa's crash landing.
He's crash landing in Central Park, and so he goes to find him, and he needs help, and this is where the big climax starts to happen.
It's starting to happen. So Ed Asner, of course, makes his triumphant return as Santa Claus, as he should. And I love how when Buddy's approaching him, like Ed Asner turns into like, you know, like angry, I'm gonna beat the crap out of you, Santa. like back away, punk. I'm gonna.
He's in New York,
I have a stick. I know how to use it. And so, but it's like, Buddy, that's you. It's like, yeah, like, oh God, I'm so glad you're here. And then there's the moment where like where Santa's like, yeah, you're an elf, you can fix this. You know, you're always going to be an elf, and no matter what. So, but he's like, hey, you know, the engine kind of crashed, you know, someplace in the woods back there. Go get it and reattach it. So he goes to look for the engine, and he ends up stumbling upon James Caan and the son Michael, and so now they're all gonna like help Santa out, basically.
Yeah.
So Buddy's got to reattach the engine, get that all set back up, but of course the park is now like shut down.
Well, at the same time, there's been other witnesses to the So now that
the news people are there because they're witnesses, so like, well, they thought something was Santa that crash landed.
Something crash landed in the park, and people were like, you know, curious about it. So the news is there, and this is where Zooey Deschanel decides, or she, you know, they need the Christmas.
Well, that doesn't quite happen yet.
Okay.
What happens is like the New York police like release the Central Park Rangers,
which is basically the Night Riders from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I thought that too. Like, these are the ring rays.
The ring rays,
Central Park Rangers.
Yeah, you like don't see their
like
face. They like ride in like in a sequence.
And the news lady is like, yeah, the controversial group, they're still under investigation for breaking up a riot in 1985. And I'm like, this took a turn.
All right.
What's going on here? And then so like, there's the news there's a news woman. They keep cutting back to a news broadcast where she's like interviewing like people, saying, "Oh, do you think it's Santa? What do you think it is?" And interviewing like children and whatnot. It's interesting. And then there's a one intercut news like portion where like this dude just like constantly hitting on her.
Yeah.
It was so random. It was just so random. He would just like stick like
you have a nice mouth.
yeah, like really creepy shit.
Yeah.
Like really creepy stuff in the conversation. Yeah, really disturbing. I don't know why they threw that in there. But so Buddy's got to fix the engine, but of course these Rangers are going to show up soon. So they decide to dress James Caan's character of Walter up as Santa Claus, and he's going to go and confront the Rangers as like a distraction. And meanwhile, the kid, the young boy Michael, he has Santa's book of like list of like gifts and
his naughty and
kids on
nice
the good
list. Naughty and nice
list. And he's like, so he grabs that and he runs out to where the people are.
He's
and
trying.
He gets on TV.
When he hears that Christmas spirit helps the sleigh go.
Yeah, they need to get this sleigh off the ground.
So he wants to try to build up the Christmas spirit by going in front of the news cameras and trying to convince people that Santa's real.
Yeah, because when he went into the sleigh, like when Santa instructed him, he read like his name in the book, and it said that he wanted a skateboard, but it's not just any skateboard. So he believes in Santa, so the sleigh raises up a little bit, and then so he thinks, like you said, Steven, if he goes and like starts reading people's names and what they want from the list, they'll start believing in Santa, and it'll get the sleigh to go off the ground.
And he actually does it with the reporter, and it ends up being like something very personal, like
yeah,
I want an engagement ring for my fiance.
My boyfriend to make a commitment.
Yeah.
Get off his ass and make a commitment.
Yeah.
And so he's doing that, and then he's reading off names, and then it'll cut to like the people whose names he's reading off.
Some dude at a bar, yeah.
Some dude in a bar, and then it'll be like people at a diner. And then it's the little girl that Buddy met in the doctor's office earlier in the movie, and then so basically, like, this stuff is starting to get the sleigh off the ground, but the engine's still not fixed yet. And Buddy's trying to fix it, but Santa's like, I gotta go because, the Rangers are right there. So he's like bumping on the ground across Central Park trying to fly. And they fix the engine for like a second, but then it like explodes again.
It gets knocked off by a tree, I think, or something.
Yeah, and it goes flying.
Yeah.
And basically Santa's just like
gliding on Spirit.
About to crash land. But meanwhile, Zooey Deschanel starts singing, like as you were hinting at before. Where does she start singing? I forgot what she starts singing.
It's Santa's coming to town.
Yeah, Santa Claus is coming to town, and she starts singing, and because she sees Buddy on the news broadcast, and the way they shot it, I thought was hilarious because they shot it like the Bigfoot footage that you've seen on.
There's a man in Central Park that we.
Yeah, you've seen it. He's even walking exactly like the Bigfoot footage, and he looks back towards the camera like the Bigfoot footage, and it's Buddy. And so she sees him, so she leaves her apartment and she goes down there to see what's going on, and then she runs into the kid, to Michael, and then she starts singing because to get up the courage, sing. She has the courage to sing now in front of people because of Buddy.
Well, yeah, he
says wants to raise Christmas spirit.
Yeah.
You can see all these pieces coming together here.
Yeah, and so she sings, and everybody starts joining in, and it bumps up the Christmas spirit. You see people everywhere singing. The people in the bar are singing. The people in the mail room are singing. It's kind of like the end of the movie Scrooged, where he's like on the live camera and he's singing the "Put a little love in your heart," and then
nice.
So yeah.
I was thinking of the end of Ghostbusters 2 when all the people of New York start singing.
Yeah.
And it starts killing Vigo the Carpathian.
Yeah.
I was thinking that too.
My
mind went there. Either way, it's effective.
It works.
So, but everybody's singing except for James Caan's character. And Buddy's like, not Buddy, but Michael's like, hey, you're not singing, Dad. You're just going along with the words. You're like mumbling along with the words. with your mouth. And he's like, yes, I am. Yes, I am. And he's like, no, you're not. And it's like, okay, fine. So he starts singing, and the little speedometer of Christmas spirit on the sleigh, like, goes up to 11 or full tank of gas. And then Santa lifts up off the ground fully before he's about to crash into something. And then they fly over the crowd, and yeah. And then everybody's like, oh, it's Santa. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, wow. And then Buddy's there, and he starts waving at everybody, and
that's and then from there
That's
on, it's
close
just
to
kind
the
of
end
like a montage to the end of
and
like
there's just kind of like a little epilogue about you know,
Buddy
and
ended
stuff,
up getting together with Zoe Deschanel, and then they get together, and you see that their families are hanging out, and then Buddy goes back up to the North Pole, and it seems that he's had a kid too with
he visits there along with Jovi. They have a kid, and then also James Caan's character, he started his own publishing company,
and
he uses Buddy's story that becomes a bestseller, and that's kind of the way the movie ends. Yay
Elf.
It's like I said, it's become a Christmas cult classic every year. Every year people watch it, they post about it. And I was asking Steven, I don't know at what point did this movie become that? At what point does
I don't know. I think a lot of it, I mean, it's funny because to me, I look at cult classics as being something that was not popular and then got popular. This was...
Yeah, maybe I'm using the word cult classic wrong.
Yeah, I was going to say, because like this I think grossed over like $225 million on a $33 million budget. So it's a big hit.
It's a big, I would say that's
it's just become a little bit, it's become, I guess maybe not cult classic, but more like, when did it become a seminal film?
Yeah, a seminal
Christmas
holiday film for every single year. I don't know when that happened. And I wanted to actually, this is a good time to drop this bomb. I have not seen this movie from beginning to end in like 17 years.
Since it came out.
Since I originally bought the DVD. And I've had the DVD sitting on my shelf, and I've just never rewatched it from beginning to end. I've seen certain scenes. I've seen, of course, references to it. And, of course, I know the movie. It's never made my rotation of, like, personal Christmas films for me to watch every year.
I have to watch it every year now because my wife, it's one of her favorites. So
You're obligated.
I'm now obligated to watch it probably every year now.
And what I find, and I mean, this makes perfect sense now that you mention your wife loving the movie and watching it every year with you, is it seems to be people from our generation, from people around our age who saw it back in 2013 when they were, like we said, teenagers or whatever, or even people who were younger had seen it at the time. They're the ones now who are the adults, and they're the ones watching it with their families and their significant others and their children and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of been adopted by our generation, and then the generation after us has kind of picked it up as well.
And the other thing too is I would say, Elf and maybe a few others. There's Christmas movies are not as frequent, especially frequent in how good they are, because the Christmas movie has now become a Hallmark thing. Like it's like like Hallmark is like that's their like go-to.
That's their bread and butter.
And so actually having good Christmas movies is few and far between. I think they were a little bit more frequent back in the day.
Oh, definitely when it comes to, like, for the big screen.
Yeah.
I mean, you hardly get holiday films for the big screen nowadays at all, really. And if they do, they come out in, like, November or October. And it's really much different than it was back in the day. Although, like you said, like with the Hallmark and Lifetime and all that kind of stuff, their Christmas movies, like they start that stuff in July.
Yeah.
And they started back in like the summertime,
yep.
like Christmas in July and all that kind of stuff. So you really don't get holiday films for this time of year. And if you do, they don't seem to have the staying power of a lot of the previous
I would say the last Christmas movie that I haven't watched it yet. I've heard that Netflix Claus movie
is
apparently pretty good.
And what about the
I like the Seth Rogen one from a few years ago.
Yeah, that's become an every year thing for me. The Night Before.
The Night Before, yeah.
I think that movie is super underrated when it comes to a holiday film.
Yeah.
For those of you who haven't seen it, it's really funny. And I think Michael Shannon is amazing.
God, he steals that movie.
He's only in the movie for like 5 minutes total, probably.
Yeah.
He's amazing in it.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's just they don't seem to have the staying power, and it's really like kind of fascinating how like all the classics are from what 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, from what we
unless you want to count the ones that are like borderline Christmas movies like Die Hard.
Even then, Die Hard was what,
1980 something. 19.
Yeah, I mean we're talking over 30 years ago, and it's like, yeah, I mean even things like Jingle All the Way and Home Alone are from 25, 30 years ago. I mean, Scrooge, like, I know it's one of your favorites, came out in what, 1988, I think.
88, 89, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like not a lot from, I think, this current generation of movies over the last decade or so. I think I've really stood up. I mean,
people still watch that Jim Carrey Grinch movie, but I don't get it.
You know what? I'm actually one of the few people who actually still watch it every year. I think it's underrated. I really do. I don't know what it is about that movie. I don't know either. It's so bonkers.
Like, it is definitely bananas. Bonkers.
It's the Rick Baker like makeup effects, and just the fact that like they were like, you know what, we're gonna make a live action Dr. Seuss movie, and we're just gonna do it to the nines. Like, it's going to be you see what you see on the page, that wackiness, that weird world. We're just gonna make that live action. Yeah. That's what we're gonna do. Forget any type of realism. Just do it.
Yeah, and some people, people still like to watch Polar Express.
Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah.
Zemeckis was way too early. He was too early with performance capture technology.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, he was doing it at the same time as, post Lord of the Rings, where like that performance capture had become really popular because of Lord of the Rings. He just couldn't quite get the tech down to it. But anywho, we could go on a whole thing about other holiday movies like Love Actually, or like Miracle on 34th Street, or It's a Wonderful Life. I mean, there's, and then like, but we did a whole episode about that last year.
Yeah,
we did a whole episode.
Go back to it, watch it, listen. I mean, and that is it for our discussion of Elf.
Directed by Jon Favreau.
Yeah, and like we said, this is the last of this year, unfortunately. So you'll have to wait till probably maybe the first or second week in January before you'll hear us again. But we hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas, a wonderful New Year. Keep on watching movies. I mean, I know I'm already saying the tag, but
I know, kind of messed up.
I'm gonna say it. We'll say it again at the end. Of course. Just keep watching movies, guys. I mean, we love them. We would assume the people that listen to this podcast love them, and keep spreading the love of movies. That's what we do here. So, hey, where can we find you, Andrew?
You can find me on Twitter at Capzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Capzilla Productions.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. Instagram, you can find me at Cinema Discovery Project, or Letterboxd at Cinema Discovery. You can find the audio for this podcast on Podbean or Apple Podcasts. Thank you once again for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.
Merry Christmas.